Thank you. I'm a writer and a physician who specializes in the treatment of addiction. And I'm working on a memoir in a series of essays about my years behind the scenes of America's opioid crisis. First as a prescriber, a generous prescriber of opioids, and then later as a physician treating many of the addictions I helped create. So this collection is really a meditation on the healing power of sustained attention. And it's also, I think, a reflection on our valorization of the opposite, of easy fixes, dulling pains, avoiding truths. So that's what I'm working on. I've been going back and forth about what to read, and I'm going to read something I recently completed that may or may not be in the collection. This essay is called Greasy Tacos, Good Posture. Last year, as I was going through a divorce I hadn't wanted or expected, as my youngest was leaving home for college, her older brother already grown and gone, and I needed to sell the house. And what would I do with the dogs? And how would the kids decide to divide their time? Who did they love more? Who was more interesting, more fun, better in every way? As I was facing the dissolution of so much of who I was and what I loved, I decided to bulldoze the whole thing. After decades as a wife, mother, and physician in Oregon, I quit a good job with great people, said goodbye to dear friends, dropped my daughter off for her freshman year, and fled to another state to become the medical director for a rural methadone clinic in a small town where I knew no one. The job and the place were new to me, but not the work. I specialize in the treatment of addiction, and I've worked in several methadone clinics throughout my career. They're all basically the same. Every methadone clinic opens early, sometimes as early as 4 or 5 in the morning, so the patients who need to get to work can come in, get their dose of medication, and make it out on time. And all methadone clinics have a dosing line. The dosing line leads to a dosing window. On the other side of the window, nurses or doctors sit, like bank tellers in scrubs, pushing plastic cups of cherry-flavored methadone through a slot between the counter and the glass. Sometimes the lines are so long and the drab clinics so cramped that the lines snake out the door and into the parking lot or down sidewalks where patients hunch in their coats, waiting in the early morning chill. In my new town, in my new state, I moved into a blue Victorian rental with white trim, just a 10-minute walk from my job. The house had a gable roof, stained and scuffed wood floors, no closet space, and a bay window facing the street. Oh, I loved it. In the mornings, I would wake up in the dark for work and not worry about the noise I was making. There was no one else in the house, no one who might roll over and growl, "Jesus, what the fuck?" At the end of each long day, as I shuffled through the door, there was no unhappiness to greet me. There was just me, suggesting I put my feet up. And did I want a cup of tea, something stronger, maybe a nap? In the evenings, I often talked for hours on the phone with my children, desperate for details of their lives. And I was gutted when they asked so sweetly how I liked my new home, which was not their home and never would be. Sometimes my solitude was a balm. Sometimes grief was a wave from nowhere, and I was drowning. Every day, the same patients, some of them traveling for hours just to get to their medication. The older man with the long beard, bent over his walker and unable to make it from the car to the window without stopping to catch his breath. The tired blonde with a toddler in tow. The school teacher darting in and right back out, hoodie up and head down. The bulky guy with the teardrop tattoos under his right eye that the clinic counselor told me signified prison time, but the nurse told me no, that was wrong. It meant he killed somebody. and all I knew was that he was always so polite with me. The angry man with his greasy hair and a ponytail, who wouldn't say hello or make eye contact at all, and whose locked-in rage kept me silent as well. I say I didn't expect the divorce or want it. That isn't right. We'd had counseling for years, while resentment stacked one on top of the other and nothing changed. I was too private, he said, too contained. Also, never satisfied, which was true. I was also terribly lonely, often and especially in his company. I had so many journal entries riffing on the same theme. I should go, I should go, I should go. But I couldn't do it. We loved and raised our children together. We'd grieved parents' deaths together. He was and is endlessly unexpected, and he could make me laugh harder than anyone before or since. He made salty tuna fish salad with mustard for lunch and perfectly greasy tacos for dinner. Sometimes we played Scrabble. He had excellent posture. And I couldn't destroy the future I told myself was just around the corner, the one in which everything would be different. In that future, we would savor time with our children and each other. We would take walks, have meandering conversations, and enjoy the grandkids while we still had our health. And they were still just babies. Never mind that he didn't really like babies. Or, eventually, me. So I didn't leave. But finally, he'd had enough of the distance between us. Finally, he had the courage to leave me instead. For weeks, every Monday, I filled and labeled bottles of methadone to take to the jail for a patient who'd been incarcerated for I don't know what reason. I worked at the clinic for months before she was released, and I was able to meet her in person. I'd expected someone hard, ground down, but she was a tiny blonde in her 20s with the kind of bouncy energy I associate with cheerleading or selling real estate. As I set the plastic cup under the machine, she told me she'd been surprised when they informed her she was being released. She said she called her boyfriend to tell him. He didn't have a car, so she knew he couldn't pick her up, but she wanted him to know that she'd be out. And there he'd been, waiting outside when they opened the door. She couldn't believe it. She was so happy, telling me about it, a huge smile on her face, her blonde hair in a ponytail, dyed blue at the ends. On the days I didn't work, I read entire books uninterrupted and took long walks in the hills above town, under trees with twisting branches and silvery bark, and through long grasses that brushed at my calves. I let my mind wander. I remembered my mother's quiet, "Are you sure?" when I told her we were getting married. I recalled a good friend only weeks before the wedding wondering, maybe you could just live together? I thought of my father during those first years of marriage and again toward the end, calling, "Jesse, is he good to you? Make sure he's good to you." I would reassure him, both because I wanted it to be true and because sometimes, even as it unraveled, it was. "Yeah, Daddy's good. We're okay." The day after the tiny blonde got out of jail, the angry man with the greasy hair was back, transformed. I saw him arrive as I walked through the lobby. He was scrubbed clean, his hair was washed and falling in gorgeous brown waves to his shoulders, and he was smiling. I swear to God, he looked like Jesus at his peak, beautiful and glowing. The tiny blonde was in the lobby too. When it was her turn, I called her number, and as I filled her cup with red liquid, the no longer angry man was called to the adjacent window. Against the rules, he popped over to her side and dropped a lollipop on the ledge in front of her. Then he popped back to the other window to get his dose. Oh, the look on her face. Oh. Of course, their relationship was doomed. The no longer angry man was still using fentanyl, and the tiny blonde was just out of jail, just getting on her feet. Plus, neither of them had stable housing. They are going to face difficulties, separately and together, I can barely comprehend. Yeah, I'm a little jaded, but the writing is on the wall.